they couldn't get a hold of me. I didn't show up at work. My mom and dad did have a way to get into my house, and my mom found me. So it was very traumatic for my mom. I was like, I took way too much, and I am lucky.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Bunny Hugs and Mental Health, a free safe space for people to share and learn from others' experiences with mental health and addictions. I'm Todd Rennebaum, suicide attempt survivor and a recovering substance abuser. Now I say this every time and I mean it every time. Got another great episode for you here. This one is with Carrie Magnusson. She is a podcaster and her podcast is called Carry On with Carrie, and we discuss her journey through mental health. She has struggled with depression and anxiety, postpartum depression, OCD, and she's gone through multiple abusive relationships. She's bringing a lot of experience and a lot of value to this podcast because I think a lot of people can relate and take something from her story. Before we get into the episode, very quickly, I just want to remind people that on Thursdays, there's also an episode of Mental Health Headline Hot Takes with Nick and Todd, and we discuss articles about mental health in the news. I've also got a new merch store. The link is in the show notes. There's something for everyone in there, and I truly mean that. I mean, if you have a very small budget, that's great. There's pins and magnets and stickers. There's shirts or hoodies, all that kind of stuff. At this point, there's, I think, 50 different designs. So there's, like I said, there's a little something for everybody. I've also got a buy me a coffee thing now. That'll be in the show notes too. So if you're so inclined to support the podcast and support me and help me out a little bit, that'd be great. You can just buy me a coffee. Oh, and all these episodes will also be on YouTube. And so if you'd rather watch this interview, which maybe you'd prefer because Carrie's just a very beautiful lady. So you can watch that on the YouTube channel, Bunny Hugs and Mental Health. But speaking of Carrie, well, let's speak to her. So without further ado, I give you Carrie Magnusson.
It's funny because my mom and I were talking about this even just yesterday, and she said, Carrie, I sure hope, because I have my own podcast and she hears some different stories and she hears a lot about like what happened when people are kids. And so anyways, I'll be really like, honestly, my childhood was quite amazing. My mom and dad were just amazing people, very supportive always. But having said that, I'm one of those people, I don't know, there's a lot of my childhood that I don't always recall. I think, was I even there? But I was off in like butterfly land already, even back then, like, ooh, like something else is shiny. So I go and look at that. But yeah. And
so you did psychedelics as a kid?
Yeah. I still haven't even done them as an adult.
Oh.
Yeah, I never did dabble in that stuff. But although I tried one thing once and it didn't go very well. But anyways, yeah. So when I was a kid, my mom and dad, my mom moved from, like, they met in Ontario. They moved to Regina. So I grew up in Regina. My mom went from living in the big city to Regina. So I think she might have gone through culture shock and had a bit of her own depression and things going on. But again, it's not something that I remember. They were just good people. But we moved around a lot. We moved every 3 years. My dad was a salesperson. He was quite successful. And so we moved around a lot, and I was super shy. I was always a little within myself. And I think I'm an introvert, an extrovert introvert. I don't know if that's what it is, but I think I always have been. And so I think that kind of took its toll on me. And I mean, I've had this discussion with my parents too. We're pretty open about stuff. And so early on, had troubles reading and all that good stuff. And like school problems in school and all that. And then just like fast forward into my teens, that social awkwardness, we wound up moving to Alberta. And partied in high school with a few people. When I moved here, though, I looked like a little boy. My hair was short, and I just was awkward. And I was in grade 8, and I just didn't know who I was yet, even. And moving to a place that everybody most definitely didn't look like boys. All the girls wore makeup, and I was still pretty naive. And anyway, we come here, and
to a city.
Sherwood Park, Alberta is where I'm living, and I've stayed since. And I think I've stayed because I've raised 3 sons here, and I wanted them to have the same place. So now 2 of them are in different cities because now they have to experience the opposite of me. So
right.
But yes, so fast forward, lots of things. I had my first drink probably when I was about 14. And the first time I drank, I took it to the extreme and passed out, and all the good stuff that goes with that, and probably did a few really embarrassing things. And that's kind of how my drinking, I don't know, didn't always go that bad, but that was the summer before grade 10 or somewhere around there. I don't know, time is foggy, but in between grade 10 and 11, I'd already drank quite a few times, just with friends and stuff, and with people I trusted. And I went with a friend of mine to a lake out here in Alberta, and my mom was a bit leery to let me go because they were pretty strict parents, and not strict but caring, and worried a lot. And here I go off and go to the lake with my friend, and there's no parents there. We have the cabin to ourselves, and alcohol was being served, and so we drank a lot, and we wound up at a party. And at that party, I wound up getting sexually assaulted. I thought that I was being safe because I drank a few times, but I really wasn't,
experienced,
weathered. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And I was very naive I was a virgin at this point. And so when this guy in the party, they were all a lot older than us. And I just remember I didn't like the feeling he gave me. He made me uncomfortable. And so I just wanted to get out of there. And because I'd had too much to drink, I wasn't thinking straight. And my idea of getting out of there was get out of the cabin, go to the side of the cabin, and lay down in the woods. Go to sleep. Just lay down for a bit. Whatever. I thought I was safe. So I was out there, and I don't know how long I was out there for, but this guy came and found me and proceeded to take me where he did. And yeah, so that's kind of the history on that. And he sexually assaulted me. And I think that probably ran the course of what came up in my life. You can't blame everything on that, but I can't really look back and think what other really big, devastating thing happened. We all have those little traumas, but this was a doozy. And yeah. So that's when I first started thinking of suicide.
No, did you tell anybody or tell the police or anything, or you just kind of dealt with it? And okay. Yeah,
just my friend was there, and I don't want to say anything about that because of her own thing. And her and I are the only 2 that knew about it until I was about 19, and I was probably drinking again and told my mom. Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, yeah.
And the thing is, I know a lot of girls who lost their virginity in high school, drunk, sexually abused at a party or someone's car or whatever. And it's I can't imagine, as a guy who was getting drunk and trying to get laid, it's
right.
I can't imagine. I just can't imagine that kind of trauma.
It was
so
yeah. It was a crappy thing, and since I think I've done a lot of work on it. But fast forward again now 2 years later, and I think, I look back and I think, because I was pretty naive. Like,
Sure.
anyways, I wound up meeting a
There's
guy
nothing wrong
who's
with
older.
naive.
That's okay, and I liked that about myself, and I think even
Yeah.
still now I'm learning not to trust as many people as I used to, but I have such an open, like, I want to find the best in people. So,
Really?
yeah.
Because you seem like such a bitch.
I, I know everybody says that.
I'm kidding. You're like one of the sweetest people I've ever talked to.
Thank you.
So, whether that means you're naive or not, I don't know. But it's an endearing quality you have.
Thank you. So yeah, I met a guy. He was older than me, and it was trouble from the get-go. And I wound up getting pregnant at 17. And
with a boyfriend this time.
With a boyfriend, yes, this was a boyfriend.
Right, okay.
So yeah, he was a good guy, and it's all that. But he was older, and anyways, I wound up getting pregnant and decided to keep my son. But that led to, like, when I look back at it, it's like, well, why was I naive enough to think, how people say, well, you should use protection, this, and that. I was literally just the week before, the week before I had my appointment to see the doctor to go on birth control, I found out I was pregnant. I was like, damn, that was a little late, hey? But I don't regret it now, of course, because I have an amazing son, and that's, but it led to a lot of different challenges for me when I was already kind of in a rough place that didn't heal from the other thing. So, yeah.
So now you can't focus on yourself and your healing and your journey. You've got this other human to take care of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Not that was a conscious decision to just, we just do that, right? It's just your maternal instincts kicked in, and it's not like it's not like you made the decision to not heal so that you could take care of your son. It's just, that's just
how it
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in that course of that, I look back and think, because I wasn't healed, I made a lot of mistakes. I wound up, and I think that, like, my postpartum depression really got me, and I didn't know what that was, because I was still, like, who knows? I was 17. Your hormones are all over the place anyways, and you're confused and scared. And I had graduated from high school, but I didn't really have anything else at the time. And again, I'm lucky that my mom and dad were there and very supportive. They offered for me to live there right away, like that, to support me right from the get-go. So, I know that I had it lucky. There's a lot of people that they don't have that support. So, but OCD kicked in, and OCD comes from not having enough control, I think. And that came in, and it was bad. It was, I dealt with that. Suicidal thoughts always came in. Suicidal ideation always came in. But that, I never talked about that then. Like, I tried not to even recognize that was the thing. And
were you diagnosed with OCD then, or were you diagnosed later? Oh, really? Even back then?
Yeah, at that time,
way back then.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Back in 1975. No, I'm just kidding. No. Way back then. And they actually, even way back then, they knew that it was because of a lack of control in my life. And that was kind of, and so I don't know, where else do I want to,
were you married or
at that
you
time, no. No,
okay.
He was going to ask me to marry him, but I told him, I said, well, just because I'm pregnant, that's no reason to get married.
Oh, well, my parents got married.
But I just knew I wasn't ready for that. And I guess deep down knew, like, we were together for about a year after my son was born. And then we went our separate ways. And that was a very stressful time too, because, it's custody and getting, we weren't married, but like all those challenges that came with it, and money, and not going to school. So I did go to college, became a hairdresser by default, because I just didn't know what else I was going to do at that point. And so I did it. And I wound up meeting somebody, I guess my son was about 3 years old, and I did get married to him. And I won't say too much about that either because of privacy stuff, but it was a fairly more emotionally, verbally abusive relationship, and quite so. And because of who I am a fairly soft-spoken person, but when you push me, I'll kick back a little bit. And then I had my twins. So this was 10 years after I had my son. And there was a few things that happened. My twins came early. I had them at 29 weeks pregnant. So they were like 2 and 3 pounds.
Well, how many weeks is a pregnancy normally?
40.
Oh, okay.
So
I'm just trying to do math here. I'm like 9 times 4. Okay, right. Yeah, that is early. You're right.
It's pretty early, but I mean, with twins, oftentimes they can be a little bit early, but that's still a little too early. And
so you put them back in, and
I tried to keep him in there as long as I could, but they just wouldn't. They wouldn't. They wanted out.
Okay. It's not quite ready, hon. Put them back in.
That's right. If I only could have, but they did. I mean, they're 21 now and like 6'2". So I'm pretty.
They did okay.
They did okay. Yeah. It was mom that, again. So now twins, a stressful marriage. We moved, and a really like controlling marriage at this point. And I was in major depression. I was like, postpartum hit me like, it was one of the hardest times of my life. And I was trying to because I was a young mom with my oldest, I wanted to prove to everybody how I could do it perfect. Mm-hmm. And now but it's twins. And I didn't ask people for help, and all those kinds of things. And I wound up, they put me on antidepressants, and it wound up, it's now still an allergy on my health records, but it led me to doing, when I drank, it wasn't good. And that was when my first, I guess, the boys were about 2 years old, and I had my first suicide attempt. So
this is early 2000s.
Yes. Yeah, like 2004. And
I'm just trying to picture the world. I'm trying to, paint an image in my brain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Well, 911 happened, and that's when, I swear to God, I remember when I got pregnant. I know that's too much information, but it was that spring that there was a baby boom, which is ironic. After such tragedy, people come together, I guess, and we
after 9/11. Mm-hmm. Oh, I see. Okay, you said 911. I was thinking like.
Did I say 911? I'm sorry.
I think you said 911.
I probably did.
Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, sorry, I did. Probably. Yeah. So, so fast forward 2 years later, and
so you're like, the towers are down, knock me up.
Yeah.
Everybody was like, yes, let's have babies.
Right. That seemed to be apparently was a huge baby boom. I don't know. I don't know the statistics, but
or the psychology
after 911.
No. Sorry. I do this, especially in evening interviews. I'm super smart assy in the evenings, especially for some reason.
Good.
So I'll cut you off every once in a while just to be a dick.
Well, it is your show. You can cut me off whenever you like.
Continue, so I can be a dick.
I don't know. So I had my first suicide attempt, and I wasn't getting a lot of support from my husband because of some of the circumstances around it that surrounded it. And
So he wasn't like worried or anything. He was just like, nah,
yeah, well,
suck it
so
up.
yeah, and I think I remember hearing a little bit about your story when you wound up in the hospital. And for me, what happened was they take me into emergency, and the doctor that I had winds up, he knows my husband. And so they started talking, and oh, chummy, chummy. And then the doctor came to me and said, "So, can you tell me what happened tonight?" And I just kept my mouth shut because he knows my husband. And so, and I left, and there was no follow up. There was no, like, basically, here you go and go home. And nothing from there. Meanwhile,
He did know it was an attempt on your life, though?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So he
so
knew that much. He's just, okay.
I wind up with my husband and like back at the house, and I'm not doing very well, and he's not being very supportive. It's a lot of judgment, of course, and the judgment and shame. When I came home, I was just so full of shame. Like, I have my beautiful kids at home, and I was trying to leave them. But I literally
How selfish are you?
Right. But my brain, after what had happened that night, took me to a place of they would just be better off without me. Everyone would just be better off without me. It wasn't a selfish act on my point at that point. I wasn't thinking straight. It was literally, I need to save them from who I am. And even when I look back, it wasn't even that bad, but it felt like it at the time. And like what had happened, I mean. So I stayed with my mom and dad for a bit, and I realized that my husband was never going to actually be supportive over this. So I looked at him and I said, okay, that's it. I realized this is going to be over. So I decided to leave, but we had to live together for another while the house was getting settled and all that. And
so what was the time frame between your attempt and you deciding to leave your husband?
About a week.
A week? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it happened pretty quick. You're like, fuck this guy.
Yeah. Because it was bad. Okay. Like, I mean, it was bad before. And then when I saw that, like, he would never let this go. It would always be looming over us. And that's kind of how our relationship it evolved to that. And
do you think maybe he had some trauma, and this was like the way he was behaving was, I don't know. I'm not trying to make excuses for him, but like, I know a lot of men that are dicks, and it's like, oh, it's because they were treated like dicks growing up, and they're suffering through trauma, and this is learned behavior, and et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, 1,000%. And that's why I think, and going back to me being the kind of the person I am, and I want to give everybody a chance and a break. And his story growing up, I can't share his story, but what he did experience with certain things was traumatic for him. And it does explain a lot about his personality now, but it still didn't make it okay anymore for me to have to keep taking it. I just couldn't. 100%. It was right. And, but yes, I mean, now I forgive anybody in my past. I forgive myself. I'm trying to forgive myself for any decisions I made in the past, but he knew what he knew, and that's all he could do with it. And we weren't meant to be. So, yeah. So,
is he a good father?
Yeah, he's a good father. He's like around with the kids. We don't talk at all. We never did have a good relationship after any of it. So he's a bit of a hard ass, but I can't really talk about him because that's like I don't even know him anymore. Like
right. So, I guess it more like the kids are like he's in the kids' lives and stuff and whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he was
Sorry,
hard on them too, and that's why it's like such a touchy subject, because
that's their story.
That's right. That's their story,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
mine. And yeah. So fast forward a couple months, I'm living with him, and it was a bad situation. And I drank again another night, and I turned left instead of going straight, and made a wrong choice.
Driving?
Yeah, no, but I wasn't drunk driving. I was on my way home, and I decided to go somewhere else. I turned left, and I regretted that decision for years. Why did I go left instead of just not going straight home? Because I did go have drinks and whatever. When I came home, I overdosed. I took as many pills as I could. I don't care if you share this part, because this is, and I almost succeeded that time. And so in that, I lost custody of my kids, because he was there when it happened, but he was in the master bedroom and I was in the other bedroom, and he had left for work and I was not awake. So when they came, sorry, just need a sec. I don't talk about this very often. When they couldn't get a hold of me, I didn't show up at work. My mom and dad did have a way to get into my house, and my mom found me. So it was very traumatic for my mom. I was like, I took way too much, and I am lucky that I was able to get out of it. I was having a hard time. They made me walk out of the hospital. I don't remember doing it when 2 days later, when I was conscious enough to get out, but I couldn't walk. My parents had to hold me up, and it was bad.
But they made you leave? You couldn't even walk, and they're like, all right, time to go.
And guess what?
What?
No help. They just sent me home.
Yeah.
My parents helped me, but guess what I had to go home to now? And
he was still there?
I left after that. That was that. I just left my house. I left. I had to. I had really no choice. My sister helped me kind of through that, and I still look back and forth like, was this the right decision? But she helped me, and she took me down to to a hospital here in Edmonton, and I stayed there. I checked myself in to the hospital, and I just needed a break. I needed help, and I was scared as hell in there. And it was a tough time, because my oldest son he was trying to figure out his mom, and he was so excited about the twins, and then this, and he was excited to leave. He's like, "Oh, you're finally leaving." So he was happy. We went and lived with my mom. He went and lived with my mom and dad right away after everything happened. But
he was 10 or 11 at this time?
He was 10. What would he have been? Yeah, 11. Going into grade 7. So what is that, 11?
Yeah.
Pretty tough time.
Bunny Hugs and Mental Health is supported by Co-op. I've been a member of my local co-op, Sherwood Co-op, for about 20 years. If you live in Western Canada, especially the prairies, or spent any time here, you've probably fueled up or bought groceries at a co-op. You might even have a co-op number, or 2, or 3. You know if you know. But co-op is not just a gas bar or grocery store. Although co-op is those things too, it's a different kind of business. Co-op members are owners, and success is shared with everyone. Your co-op doesn't benefit one person or one corporation. Your co-op was built for everyone. Your co-op was built for your community. Learn more about co-op and find a location near you at co-op.crs.
Introducing the timely children's book, Sometimes Daddy Cries. The visually stunning book is told through the eyes of a boy whose father suffers from depression. He sees his dad get sad, rest, and even go to the hospital, all while comparing his father's depression to a physical ailment. Sometimes Daddy Cries is getting rave reviews from parents and mental health professionals alike. One critic has stated, "This is a timely and important book that will help countless fathers and sons broach the subject of depression." An Amazon customer commented, "An excellent book to open up a conversation with a young child about depression in a parent." Sometimes Daddy Cries author Todd Rennebaum has personal experiences with anxiety, depression, and addiction. Sometimes Daddy Cries is available in hardcover and paperback on Amazon.ca and Amazon.com.
So living with that after, I think, just created more shame and more guilt. So just like compounding, losing my kids. I'm a good person, so to lose custody of your kids and the shame, it was horrible. It was horrible. But I fought for them. Like I fought for them. And I wound up, it took about 3 or 4 years to get full back and had them with me. But my time in the hospital, I decided to meet somebody. Really
Healthy.
Solid choice. Yeah. Solid choice.
Okay. I know you're like I don't know how many people I've met who met a girlfriend, boyfriend. You need either treatment for addictions or the psych ward.
Yeah, I know.
And it always works out.
Always. No.
JK.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, yeah. And the thing is there's a rule that you're not they tell you not to, but that's probably why everybody does, because they tell you not to. And if
the forbidden fruit,
right? Oh, okay, really? I'm not supposed to? I should. Anyway, we wound up, we were together I lived by myself still for a while and then moved in with him, and it was even worse than the first. And
how long were you in the hospital?
I was in the hospital in the hospital for 3 weeks a month. And then I did the day program for another couple months after that.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you guys moved in together.
Like a couple years later, we dated off and on.
You dated for 2 years?
Almost, but I didn't live with him.
I have to say, as far as relationships I know that have started in the psych ward, that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty good, but there's a reason why it's not good, because it was so unhealthy. And I went back because my self-esteem was bad, and I really, I broke up with him, and, I should have known the warning signs from there, because I saw him on my street corner one day and he was stalking me. And he wound up getting me back in. But of course, he was like, "I love you," and all this stuff. And I don't want to get into that too much either. But it was just not a good situation. So I was like, then he, gave me a ring. And we decided to get married. And at that time, I had started to drink a little bit. And it became a little bit more like, if my kids weren't with me for the week, then I knew I could have some, that kind of thing. I was still a good mom. But when we would drink together, he would drink to excess, and then just something would snap in his brain, and it was bad. But I take responsibility too, because I was drinking as well. Like, you have to, take care of your side of the street kind of thing.
Yeah. Take accountability too. Yeah. Sure.
Although taking accountability doesn't allow for abuse either. So.
Right. Yeah.
I left him after a very traumatic night. And so I left, and he wound up stalking me for, a good year or so. And he wound up in jail for a year. And the guilt I felt from
for
that.
Stalking because,
you? Yeah. I was married for, so we got married after dating for like 2 years, living with each other for a time, and then let's get married. Well, we got divorced like 4 months in. So it was a 4-month marriage. So I just blinked my eyes. Yeah. It was a lot. So, and
well, I mean, the amount of women also that I hear their stories about being stalked and stuff, and stocking and
stuffers.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah. But and they're like their stalkers like get slapped on the wrist. So that's I'm genuinely shocked that he did any time, let alone a year or so. But anyway.
Well, he continued to keep doing so many different things, and usually drunk. And I was in a townhouse at the time, and I was outside, I was raking my lawn, and my neighbor comes over to me and she says, "Oh, by the way, make sure you lock your doors at night." And I said, "Oh," I said, "Okay, why?" And she said, "Because I was in my house, I kept my door unlocked because my husband was supposed to come home from work right away. And I went up to bed, and I hear a noise downstairs and come in, and somebody came into her room, and she thought it was going to be her husband, but it was somebody else."
Your husband.
Yeah. So he got the townhouses confused, and I still think I have an angel somewhere, because yeah, I don't even want to know what would have happened if he had gotten into the right place. And
Yeah.
Yeah, it was that again, another just, I don't know how I didn't start to drink, and I'm not using it like it's okay to do that in this, but it just, I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know how to cope. I didn't know.
As you're talking and you were just starting to explain that you had been depressed for so long, and
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of in abusive relationships for so long. I don't know. Have you ever heard of the boiling frog? It's like you put the frog in water and in the pot, and you just slowly raise the temperature to the point it's boiling, and the frog doesn't even, because it's so slow, the frog doesn't jump out because it doesn't even realize the danger it's in.
Right. Yeah.
You're a
Yeah.
frog.
I'm a frog. I love frogs too.
They're cute. But then people always question, like, well, why didn't you just leave? I was like, I didn't even know I was in that situation. It's like,
Yeah.
it's so gradual and so much manipulation and stuff, and it's for so long that and then until the pot falls over, you didn't even realize the water was boiling.
Exactly. And you also, like, I'm a pretty self-aware person too, and I realized that some of it was of my own doing. And so when you put that into the equation, it makes you feel even worse and even more guilty. So, that's probably around when I started to drink a bit more, but still fairly controlled. But then I wound up with an eating disorder. And because when I was with him, he really liked skinny. He liked a certain, you'd wear your short skirts and type this and that. And I always had somewhat of a thing with my weight. And so I wound up turning to bulimia because I realized after leaving my first husband, I wound up losing a ton of weight. And that was because of stress.
You're right.
But it's the first time I felt like I can be skinny. Okay, well, let's work with this now. Let's add another thing on there.
Oh, you should start the stress diet.
Yeah. I lost 200 pounds in like 3 weeks.
Pardon me?
Yeah.
Did you say 200 in 3 weeks?
Yeah. His name, I can't say his name.
Oh, fuck, I get it. Jesus Christ.
I had to say.
I'm such an idiot. I was like, what? Is that medically possible?
I did it.
You are a bitch.
I am. My sarcasm comes out at night.
Yeah. So do you think is the bulimia, I sound like Schwarzenegger, is the bulimia and the OCD, and it's like the OCD, it was like a bit of a control thing too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, something that I didn't even think it would become a problem, and then it did. Like, I would start, my food. I ate the same thing every day. I would cook the meals for my kids, but I would, I'd have my so it's crazy. 5 crackers, cottage cheese, and a banana. And then I'd have a chicken wrap every day. And that's all I ate, but I didn't even eat that because I usually brought it up.
God.
And a lot of people don't even know that about me, to be honest. And I'm at a point in my life where it's like full disclosure, because
Who
I
fucking
just need
cares?
other people to understand that, right? Like,
Yeah. For me, it's like the people that don't get it, I don't fucking care. But the people that do get it, they really appreciate it. So fuck it.
exactly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, so I did that for a while, and I left him. My ex-husband wound up going to do like
Jail.
his time. And again, I felt guilty for that too, because there was like, well, I loved him. He was a good, he was good sometimes, and he was, and so it was hard. It was a hard thing. It's not like anybody wishes that on anybody, or it was difficult to navigate that. And then I wound up meeting another man. And
In jail.
no.
No. Well, while I was visiting
I
him
never
in
went
jail.
to jail. I never did the jail visits.
Okay.
I stayed away from him after that.
It was AA meeting. That's where he found us.
Nope.
Okay. I hope it's
In
funny.
a bar.
Okay. So no, that makes just sense.
And I had a new self-esteem. So I was like, I'm going to give this guy my phone number. I never did that in my life. I'd never put myself out there. And he was like the boiling pot with the frog. It just gets worse and worse and worse. Well, this guy was, and he was, I can openly talk about how physically abusive he was, and manipulative, and all the things. And that was a bad one. And that was when my third suicide attempt came into play. And that time I tried everything to be gone, and even got in my car after. I don't remember it, but I woke up with sitting in my driver's seat, and a police officer looking at me. And yeah, I hit a tree, and I was lucky to be alive, and lucky that I didn't hurt anybody else. And I also had an angel somewhere right there. If you believe in something higher than yourself, I don't know what it is, but they not only didn't arrest me, they took me to the hospital. They made sure I was okay. And I didn't hurt anybody. And I lived. So
and now you're married to the cop.
No.
Wouldn't that be an ending?
Wouldn't it? That would be quite a Hallmark story. Can we make this into a Hallmark movie?
the triple suicide attempt Hallmark story.
Yes. And then she came out of it, and he loved her despite of it all.
Oh my God. Now, again, this is a boiling frog thing, so there's no judgment or anything, but it was like you just went from bad to worse when it came to men. And then the suicide attempts were also more and more serious each time.
Yeah.
Or not, I mean, they're all serious, but like closer to actually succeeding, I suppose.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so how long ago was that, your third attempt?
That would have been about 10, 12 years ago now.
10 years ago was mine.
Yeah. Well,
Woo!
we're
Well, I say that, I shouldn't speak for you, but I tell people I'm a proud suicide attempt survivor.
Yeah.
Because I survived. It's like saying you're a proud, cancer survivor, or a proud whatever kind of survivor. Well, I said that in a staff meeting once. I can't remember if I said this story on your podcast or not, but
I remember you talking about it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and it kind of freaked people out a little bit at first, but I was like fuck it. This is, everybody's got an ailment. That's my ailment, and I survived. Yes, I still have troubles and I get sick at times, but I'm a survivor, and I'm battling every day.
Yes.
And,
you do. You continue to, right? It's work. It's It's a lot of
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. And it sounds like I relate with your story, not so much with the relationships and stuff, but like the way you internalize and you feel like a burden for other people, and it's like, and the shame and the guilt and all this stuff. Like that's the stuff that really, really gets me, even to this day. And like, I have all the strategies and tools and stuff. And so I try to be self-aware and I try to be proactive and I try to still see professionals and all this stuff. But again, though, it's like, that's just our ailment. And for whatever reason, our brains, or my brain anyway, like that's my go-to. It's like, I'm a bad father, I'm a bad husband, I'm a bad provider. They're better off without me, because at least then I'm not eating food and taking food from my kids' mouths, because I'm not providing anything. I'm actually taking away from them. I mean, I'm I'm very dumb in a lot of ways, but I'm very, very smart at justifying why I should die.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's fucked up.
I know. And it's funny you say that, because I was thinking that too. I was like, I think I'm a fairly intelligent person, but that doesn't discriminate against,
Smart.
like,
yeah.
I have ADHD now too. I'm like you. I find out like this year I have ADHD. Like, I have all the freaking acronyms. Like, I'm done with this already. I have major depressive disorder. I have, if that's what they call it still. And I mean, I'm trying not to define myself by these things. I'm defining myself by, I had a lot of trauma. And I think that that's just brought these things out more. But at the same time, I don't want to be embarrassed to say I have it, because like you just explained, I have something going on, and it's just something different than somebody with diabetes or with whatever, and
high blood pressure.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Exactly.
And and it all takes work, whether it's diabetes, you got to watch your diet and constantly be taking your penicillin. No.
Penicillin? No, your insulin.
Insulin, yes. Yeah. And for us, we have to be self-aware and, whatever we got to do. So you were diagnosed like a long time ago with OCD.
Yeah.
Did you have any kind of treatment or any kind of strategies with it as you were being abused and having babies and in and out of hospitals? You know what I mean?
Actually, OCD, I was able to really like kind of put totally the other way. I probably had it in different ways, but it didn't present itself in the same way. So I took Paxil. They gave me Paxil at the time. That's what I remember. And for some reason that seemed to help. And then I got busy with a lot of other things in my life. And I think that's why maybe the focus went off of those kinds of things. And I started to feel like maybe, I'm okay. I've got a job. I've got school. I've got this and this, You
had other things to control.
I had other things to control in my life. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I've talked to a couple of people about OCD.
Yeah.
And I don't like self-diagnosing, but I'm pretty sure I came close to like full-blown OCD when I was like in high school and teenager. I was doing stuff that I was like, I totally relate to, but for whatever reason, I grew out of it. Or I was like, I kind of was like, I gave my head a shake. I remember thinking, this is nuts. Like, why am I doing this to myself? Right. That it then just went somewhere else and went to addiction or something else. Or,
exactly.
Anxiety.
It goes to something else. Yeah.
But
that's why they're so interrelated. Like when you think about, well, I have this, and this. Well, that's because of that, you move to that, and everybody has something. I think, whether it be for shopping or I don't know. Lots of other things. There's lots of other things. They cook too much or something. Is that a thing?
Cook too much?
Can you cook too much? Is that an addiction?
I think they call them bakers or chefs.
Oh, is that a chef? Oh, right. Okay, that was really... Okay,
dude, you got a problem, man.
You have a problem.
You made like 20 burgers, man.
Okay, Okay, I just finished saying how intelligent I was. Never mind. Let's back up the truck.
Oh, no, I'm not editing that out at all. That's brilliant. but yes, everybody's got something. And when I went through Pine Lodge, the addiction treatment center,
Yeah.
I remember thinking when I was in there, and God, see, now I'm worried. I think I say this probably every episode, so
Whatever.
maybe. Well, I think people are probably tired of me hearing me say it.
But a new person might be listening and they haven't heard this yet.
I suppose that's true. But I think everybody should go through a place like an addiction treatment center for like 28 days, because it's just, like you said, everybody's got something.
Yep.
And it's just a good hard look at yourself. And it's like boot camp. It's like from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, you're working on yourself.
That's right.
And
I didn't spend time in an addiction center, but I was in the hospital, and being in, in that setting, I remember one night in particular, like, I'm just there for, they called it situational depression at the time. That's what they called it, which it probably was, but they didn't talk about, postpartum and all that stuff then. Way back then in 1902. Oof. But I just remember this one night, and I'm outside. I smoked at the time, and you had to smoke outside. And I was standing with this guy that he's a schizophrenic. And one minute he's telling us that he's a biochemist. He's gone to the moon, and then he's talking to his mom on the phone. Okay, Mom, I'm going to get my plumber's ticket. I promise. And, and then you got another, it was just this character of people. And I would have never expected that I would have been in that place. That didn't cross, so for me to think I'm any better than anybody else, I think that's this perspective that I grew up in this, suburban life with wonderful parents, and I was still a good person, but so were these people. They just couldn't help what they had.
Yeah, man. It's a journey.
It is.
It's like, I met some pretty interesting people. And at one point I was borderline judgy. At one point I was what? These people are fucking nuts. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm in here.
I know.
It's like that I look myself in the mirror and my hair's all fucked up. And so I'm just like, yay. Right. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, they're probably looking at me thinking, what a fucking weirdo.
Well, and that's just it, right? It's funny. You look at the woman beside me in the room beside me. She thought she was a vampire. She thought that, and it scared me, and they didn't have locks on the doors. And I was literally there for rest, I thought, but maybe people were scared of me. I don't know how I was presenting myself. Maybe I was just I don't know. And I guess that's where I'm thankful in a way. Do I wish that this had to be my life? It would have been probably easier if it hadn't been, but
probably
would have been pretty awesome.
Could have been worse. Could have been worse. Could have been worse though.
It could have. And I always think that, but then that's where the guilt and shame come in with depression too. Is my life isn't as bad as yours or that person's, and how are they so strong? But
comparison is the what's the saying? I just had it.
I wish I could help you, but I have no idea.
You can't compare yourself to people because it'll make you miserable, basically, is what the saying is. And
it's true.
The thief of joy. That's what it is.
Oh, yes, that's right. I have heard that one.
Now, I don't know if we finished your story, because you do end up going to AA, right? Your drinking did kind of no. You started drinking more.
I did.
That's what I'm trying to say.
I did. And throughout the next, I kind of just muddled along for the next decade or so. And nights of just pain and such depression that like I can't even explain it. I stopped with my eating disorder that I stopped that. And but the
It was
guilt
your
and the shame
ADHD. You got distracted.
that's exactly, maybe that's why I've had so many things.
like I need a new hobby. Okay, I've had
something-
bulimia, I've had OCD. I know, addict.
Let's add that one to the list.
Sorry.
Oh my God. That's great. I love that because I wonder if that's like a thing with that.
Maybe.
I'm tired of this one, so let's move on to this one. Oh boy. Maybe.
Except for the ADHD. That's the one thing you've had.
It's being consistent throughout, apparently. But I was listening to your show with the lady yesterday. I can't remember what day it aired, but about the ADHD and about people saying, "Oh, well, I don't know if you have that. You probably don't have ADHD," and because it's been so long and I wasn't diagnosed, and even I question, like, do I? I'm not sure if I do. And then I look over to the left and I'm like staring at something that oh, right, that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
I forgot that I was thinking about that. So I definitely have a certain amount of ADHD. Like I don't know
it's
if
a
there's
spectrum,
levels.
like she said.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I wound up drinking more, and then COVID hit, and now you're allowed to drink. You can order alcohol online. And I was already drinking, and I wound up drinking every day, every night. I wasn't, I didn't wake up in the morning and have to drink, and I didn't, but it just got to the point where I was like, my body, you could feel it shutting down. Like it was saying, you're not going to live much longer if you keep this up. And you're at the lowest of lows, and you wake up with that feeling of impending doom, and the suicidal thoughts were even worse. And yeah, nothing dramatic happened the night before I quit. I was at a friend's house, and there was 3 or 4 of us girls. Ironically enough, we were going to watch a Hallmark movie. It was Christmas time. And I took some drinks because that's what I did. And I love my red wine. And I bought 3 bottles of red wine for this event of watching Hallmark movie. And
For
I
yourself?
walk in. I was kidding myself and saying, well, maybe I'll share some. I really did buy it for me. But I took 2 bottles inside, and I realized like one girl only had a cooler, the other girl had half a bottle of wine, and then there was me. And so, but I was really proud of myself. I only had half a bottle, but it was when I got home, I proceeded to drink the rest, and it was all 3. And that's how alcoholism progresses, is it just keeps getting more and more and more, and you can intake more, but your body's not keeping up. You can't keep up with the abuse. And I woke up that day, and that impending doom feeling was just too much to bear. So I went to an AA meeting, and I've been sober for just over 2 years now. So
congratulations.
Thanks. It feels pretty damn good, but it's really hard now that you're sober.
Yeah, I mean, early recovery is hard. Yeah. I'm just over 7 years now, and I don't even think about it really that much anymore. Mm-hmm. Like I'll get cravings once in a while, especially if my wife's pouring a glass of red wine and I can smell it. It's like,
right.
Oh. Yeah. It lasts for like 3 seconds as opposed to 3 hours or whatever early recovery is. But yeah. Huh.
And the good thing is I don't crave it anymore. It's not that. I'm finding it's more the emotional, because when I drank, I drank solitary. I was already a shy introvert, so I would drink at home, and I was embarrassed, right? And the whole mom culture of like, in order to
it's
be
wine
a mom,
o'clock.
I'm gonna have some, and especially during COVID. Let's do a TikTok about that. It's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's meet on Zoom and we'll drink wine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many people were like, I'm in a morning meeting and I'm drinking my wine at work. I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
work
yeah.
from home. I worked outside of the home. So maybe that was a good
Mm,
thing. But
yeah.
anyway, I'm glad now I don't crave it, but it's still just emotionally. It's the now you got to face your demons, I guess. You got to face the emotions, and that's where I am now. So that's where the podcast, I do the podcast as well. And I knew I had to give back in some way because I just came out of a really bad depression in the last spring, I guess. And it was another, this is the ADHD thing that they diagnosis, and they put me on a pill, Vyvanse. I don't know if have you heard of Vyvanse?
I have, but
Yeah.
I'm on Concerta.
Okay.
I'm Team Concerta.
Yay.
I don't know.
Well, Vyvanse did not work for me. It threw me
Oh.
into my anxiety into a full head on. It was like train wreck.
It sounds like you're kind of, you're still in a kind of an early stages of your healing, maybe. Because
And yet I've been doing it all along. I started a couple years
Right.
ago, 2 years ago. I started with my AA. That helped. Definitely got me through. I don't go to meetings as much now. I go when I can. I know I can go. But I started a meditation group, a group of women that were supportive, and that really made a big difference for me. And so that's kind of what got me going on. I found out about all the different things that are available, like hypnotherapy and somatic therapy, and all these different. You can hold on to a crystal and feel good. Yeah, jazzercise.
Yeah.
Does jazzercise feel good though?
I have no idea.
No,
I have no idea. So you try like Reiki and all that?
Yes.
Poop. Have you ever heard of Body
like
Talk?
Self-care. Yes, Body Talk. I've had Body Talk done. I actually had a guest on my show that talked about Body Talk. Pretty interesting.
My wife's a Body Talk practitioner.
Is she really?
I do want you to talk a bit about your podcast and what it's called, and
okay,
some of the whatever you want to say about the podcast.
Okay. Well, I have a mental health and wellness podcast, and it's just a little thing.
Copycatter.
Yeah, I know, right? It was such a good idea. I had to. After I came out of this last depression, I knew there was something that I had to do to give back, and I started this podcast. I went in completely blind and got myself a microphone and figured out how to download all the stuff I needed to download. And so it's still I'm on episode 34, and it's called Carry On with Carrie podcast. I'm on Apple Music, Amazon, and Spotify. So I'm still not doing the YouTube thing, but I'm hoping maybe by the end of the year, I'll give myself a goal and try to up my game a little bit more, and even just the music, and find out a little bit more about editing. And I'm learning so much from just listening to other awesome podcasts like yourself, like yours. And
thanks.
Yeah, it's fun. I love it. I love doing it. And I can't believe the connection that you wind up having with a person.
So Carrie, please tell all my listeners, what's your Instagram?
My Instagram is Carry On with Carrie _podcast. And I'm on Facebook as well as Carry On with Carrie podcast. So your support means a ton. And yeah, thank you for I love interacting with you online. So that sounded weird. That sounded fucking creepy.
Thank you so much, Carrie. It's very much appreciated. I think, like I said in the beginning, you have a lot of value in your story, and it's very nice of you to share it to people, whether it's on my podcast or on your own or anyone else's podcast or any other platform. I think a lot of women can relate to your story, and I think a lot of women need to hear that there is hope and it is possible to recover and live your best life. So thanks again. Be sure to check out Carrie's podcast, Carry On with Carrie. It's on Spotify and YouTube. No. It's on Spotify and Apple and a few other places, so go check that out. I'd also like to thank my friend Joe from Queen's University, who had me come in and speak to his class virtually. And I've got another speaking event coming up in April. It's a big one. It's live. It's in a room with a couple hundred people and stuff, so that's exciting. And if you would like to have someone come speak to your company or your class or your I don't know, dog, whatever, feel free to reach out to me at bunnyhugspodcast@gmail.com. And I can do virtual, I can be in person, and I always love doing them, so yeah, just reach out to me. It would be much appreciated. Another quick reminder, I got merchandise, and I have a Buy Me a Coffee, and you can find those links in the show notes. And I just want you all to remember to please make your beds and take your meds. Bye.